The crystalline towers of Zephyria Prime gleamed under three suns, casting prismatic shadows across the royal palace. Within the highest chamber, Princess Lyronades stood frozen, literally, encased in a shimmering stasis field that pulsed with an otherworldly blue light. Her silver skin, characteristic of the Zephyrian royal bloodline, had taken on an ashen hue, and her luminescent eyes stared unseeing at the vaulted ceiling above. For 3 lunar cycles, the greatest warriors from across 17 galaxies had attempted to free her. Each had failed spectacularly. Commander Vexthor of the Crimson Legion had brought plasma cutters capable of slicing through battleship hulls. The stasis field had simply absorbed the energy, growing brighter and more impenetrable. The legendary knight Sir Photones had wielded the sword of dissolved atoms, a blade forged in the heart of a dying star. It had shattered on contact with the field, its fragments floating harmlessly in the air like glitter before disintegrating. The telepathic monks of Andromeda had chanted for 48 hours straight, attempting to commune with the ancient technology that imprisoned the princess. They had succeeded only in giving themselves splitting headaches and an inexplicable craving for toast. Even Zara the Magnificent, winner of the Intergalactic Problem-Solving Championship for 3 consecutive decades, had stood before the stasis field with her quantum probability calculator and declared it statistically impossible to breach without catastrophic consequences. The Zephyrian king, Aldernades, had grown increasingly desperate. His daughter was not just his heir, but the last of her kind capable of maintaining the planetary shield that protected Zephyria Prime from solar radiation. Without her, the planet would become uninhabitable within a year. That was when Marcus Chin arrived. Marcus wasn't a warrior, a scientist, or a mystical sage. He was a 32-year-old mechanic from Earth who had been traveling through this sector of space on a supply run when his ship's hyperdrive decided to throw a tantrum. He'd limped into Zephyria Prime's orbit on auxiliary thrusters, looking for nothing more than a decent repair dock and maybe some coffee that didn't taste like synthetic rubber. Instead, he'd been conscripted. "You're human," the royal advisor, a willowy creature named Thesha, had said, her compound eyes examining him with something between hope and skepticism. "We've heard humans have a peculiar talent for improvisation." "I fix ships," Marcus had protested, clutching his toolbox defensively. "I'm not a hero. I don't even like heights, and your palace is very, very high." "You will be compensated handsomely," Thesha had replied, which was how Marcus found himself standing in the princess's chamber, surrounded by the smoldering remains of previous rescue attempts and being stared at by approximately 24 royal guards who looked like they could bench press a small moon. Marcus approached the stasis field cautiously. Unlike the warriors who had charged in with confidence or the scholars who had approached with complex instruments, he simply walked up to it, tilted his head, and said, "Huh, huh," repeated the king, who was watching from a safe distance. "What does huh mean?" "It means I'm thinking," Marcus replied, setting down his toolbox with a metallic clunk that echoed through the chamber. He walked around the field, examining it from different angles. The blue light pulsed in a regular rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. At the base, where the field met the floor, he noticed something the others had apparently missed: a small panel, barely visible, with what looked like maintenance access ports. "Has anyone tried looking at the technical specifications?" Marcus asked. The assembled experts exchanged glances. Zara the Magnificent cleared her throat. "The technology is ancient. Predates modern Zephyrian civilization by millennia. There are no specifications." "Right," Marcus said, kneeling beside the panel. "But somebody built this thing, and if there's one universal truth in this galaxy, it's that maintenance engineers always leave themselves a way back in." He pulled out a small device from his toolbox, a multi-scanner he'd cobbled together from parts of 7 different alien technologies. It was holed together partially with electrical tape and completely against manufacturer recommendations. The scanner beeped, whirred, and displayed a schematic. Marcus squinted at it. "Okay, so this is interesting. This isn't actually a stasis field in the traditional sense. It's more like a really aggressive rust prevention system gone haywire." "Rust prevention?" King Aldernades sounded somewhere between insulted and confused. "This is ancient Zephyrian technology, not some primitive oxidation prevention, corrosion inhibitor, whatever you want to call it," Marcus interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. Point is, when your ancestors built this chamber, they installed a preservation system to protect whatever was stored here. Except the sensors are fried, so it thinks everything in the room is corroding, including the princess. It's trying to save her by putting her in suspended animation. He tapped the panel with his knuckle. And this right here? This is the manual override. But it's seized up. Probably hasn't been opened in 10,000 years. Commander Vexthor stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Marcus. I could force it open. You could, Marcus agreed, and probably trigger a security protocol that would crystallize everyone in this room. These old systems are touchy. He opened his toolbox and began rummaging through it, past the sonic wrenches, the quantum tape measure, and the half-eaten sandwich from yesterday. Finally, he pulled out a familiar blue and yellow can. What? Zara the Magnificent asked slowly. Is that? WD-40, Marcus replied, giving the can a shake. Water displacement, 40th formula. Made on Earth. We use it for everything. Squeaky hinges, stuck bolts, rusted locks. It's basically liquid magic. The assembled experts stared at him. You're going to save our princess, King Aldernades said in a dangerous voice. With a lubricant. Penetrating oil, Marcus corrected. And yeah, probably. See, your fancy plasma cutters and atom swords were trying to fight through the field. But the field isn't the problem. The problem is this mechanical lockdown here that's keeping the system from resetting. He positioned the red straw extension on the nozzle and aimed it at the panel's seams. Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. He sprayed. The WD-40 hissed as it penetrated the ancient seams. Marcus waited, counting to 30 in his head the way his mentor had taught him back in the garage on Earth. Then he took a wrench from his toolbox, just a regular titanium alloy wrench, nothing fancy, and fitted it to the panel's release mechanism. Here goes nothing, he muttered, and turned. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a grinding sound that suggested mechanical systems waking up after a very long nap, the panel began to rotate. Ancient gears, now lubricated for the first time in millennia, started turning. The blue stasis field flickered. Get back, someone shouted, but Marcus held his ground, making fine adjustments to the mechanism. He could feel the system responding, like a stubborn engine finally deciding to cooperate. The stasis field collapsed. Princess Lyronades gasped, stumbling forward. Marcus dropped his wrench and caught her before she could hit the floor. She was surprisingly light, her silver skin warm against his hands despite having been in stasis for 3 months. Steady, he said. You've been out for a while. The princess looked up at him with eyes that swirled with colors Marcus didn't have names for. You saved me. I unstuck a lock, Marcus replied, helping her stand. The lock was the real problem all along. King Aldernades rushed forward, embracing his daughter. The royal guards erupted in cheers. Thesh's compound eyes literally sparkled with tears. Even Commander Vexthor, who had been skeptical of the human from the start, gave Marcus a respectful nod. The human solved it with oil, Zara the Magnificent said wonderingly, making notes on her data pad. I'm going to have to completely recalculate my probability matrices. How did you know? Princess Lyronades asked Marcus once the initial celebration had died down. How did you see what all the others missed? Marcus packed his tools back into his toolbox, carefully placing the WD-40 on top. Because I'm not trained to think about ancient technology or mystical forces or quantum probabilities. I'm trained to think about things that break and how to fix them. And everything breaks the same way, whether it's a hyperdrive on a cargo ship or a 10,000-year-old preservation system. Stuff gets stuck. Stuff corrodes. Stuff needs maintenance. He looked around at the assembled warriors, scholars, and mystics. You all were so focused on the field, on the symptom, that none of you thought to check the mechanism. You saw a challenge worthy of heroes, and you approached it like heroes. I saw a mechanical failure, and I approached it like a mechanic. The king stepped forward, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Name your reward, human. Wealth? A ship? A title? You have saved not just my daughter, but my entire world. Marcus considered this. Fix my hyperdrive, he said finally. And maybe some of that coffee I've been hearing about. The real stuff, not the synthetic kind. That's all. The king seemed almost offended. And maybe, Marcus added with a slight smile, you could keep a can of WD-40 in your maintenance supplies. You know, just in case. Next time something gets stuck, you might want to try the simple solution before calling in the cavalry. Princess Lyronades laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a breeze. He's right, father. Sometimes the most elegant solution is the most mundane. She turned to Marcus. But before you go, human mechanic, allow me to at least learn your name. I should know who saved my life. Marcus Chun, he replied. And you're welcome, Your Highness. Though technically, I just applied the right lubricant to the right place at the right time. The right lubricant, she repeated, a smile playing at her lips. I suspect you're being modest, Marcus Chun of Earth. But I accept your explanation. She gestured to Thesha. See that his ship is repaired with the finest materials we have. And send a case of authentic Zephyrian dark roast to his vessel. Wait, Commander Vexthor said suddenly. If the solution was so simple, why didn't the preservation system's own maintenance protocols kick in? Marcus picked up his toolbox. Because maintenance protocols assume someone's actually doing maintenance. These systems were probably supposed to be serviced every 100 years or so. When's the last time anyone checked on them? The silence that followed was telling. Right, Marcus said. That's another free tip. Read the manual. Even if it's 10,000 years old. 3 days later, Marcus's ship lifted off from Zephyria Prime with a fully rebuilt hyperdrive, enough compensation to retire comfortably, and a case of coffee so good it made him seriously reconsider his career path. He also had a communicator with a direct line to the princess, who had insisted he take it in case you encounter any other mechanical problems that require your unique perspective. As his ship entered hyperspace, Marcus looked at the can of WD-40 secured to his console. He'd used about 3 seconds worth of spray to save an entire planet. Back on Earth, in the garage where he'd learned his trade, there was a sign his mentor had hung above the workbench, the right tool for the right job. Marcus had always thought it was about using the correct wrench or the proper scanner. But maybe, he reflected as the stars stretched into lines around him, it was also about being the right person with the right perspective. Sometimes you didn't need a warrior or a sage or a genius. Sometimes you just needed someone who understood that even the most impressive machine, in the end, was just a machine, and machines could be fixed. He'd tell that story to his mentor when he got home. Right after he figured out how to explain why he'd been gone for 2 months and why he smelled like alien coffee. The communicator on his console blinked, a message from Princess Lyronades thanking him again and inviting him to visit Zephyria Prime's annual Festival of Stars. Marcus smiled and set a course for home, already wondering if they sold WD-40 in bulk. Something told him the galaxy might need more of it than he'd thought. After all, in a universe of ancient technologies, mystical forces, and incomprehensible machines, sometimes the real hero wasn't the one with the biggest sword or the most powerful magic. Sometimes, it was the one with the right kind of spray lubricant and the common sense to use it. And that was just fine with Marcus Chun.